So now we're going to do I'm going to show you how to do this for your own code because there's a couple steps that you need to add to actually have it be your own in your own environment and create that requirements file. But before I do, I'm going to flip over to here because one thing I didn't show, but it's in my instruction, I believe, is to do a activate. See, is that right? Just looking up at my code real quick. That's my there. Again, I hate running in I don't hate, my virtual environment is pretty slow. Okay, yeah, so it's just deactivate. Okay, all right, so, which is what makes me crazy sometimes. Now, what this will do is it will stop using this virtual environment when you deactivate, and you can see that this is true because your demo goes away. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shut this out because I'm going to use my local environment for here. Now, by the way, if you ever need to, this is nice to know how to do. I use VirtualBox. I actually have a video from my CIT 15 students for how to run virtual environments. They need it for other reasons. I'm going to go ahead and power down and just shut down my, probably, I bet you, has some updates. Let's see. But anyway, I'm going to move this to the side while that works out. So I just wanted to show you that part because I forgot to cover that before. Okay, so now what I want you to do in your own week 9 directory. So I actually want you to walk through, and I'll walk you through the steps of how to do this virtual env and find some library, right, that you would want to use. You can use mine, the example, and again, thank Javier for that. But also use something else, right? So if you're going to use mine, also add another library there as well. And then write some simple code. Doesn't that have to be complex, but utilizes that library that you are going to install, right? So, but I'll walk you through the process. And then this is the key of, and you'll see this in the process, is once you're finished with setting it up, then I'll show you how to create that requirements file and complete the Git workflow. Okay. All right. So provide us with the link, and in your reply it tells if you were successful, because maybe you run into issues here. And that's the caveat that I had tried to say in the beginning, but I probably didn't do well, is that one of the challenges, I think Kelly and I talked about this early on, and he made a solid point. He said, I think because you have students running different operating systems, this may create different issues. And I actually ran into this with Dev 0 because a couple of you use some Windows specific libraries. So the other thing is, and I would say before you do this, really try to find only libraries that are OS agnostic, where it doesn't matter. It depends on Python. It doesn't depend on the library or the operating system. And that just makes all of our processes easier. Okay, so here's what, and I want you'll see this in the instruction. Like, here's my file for my instruction file. I'm like, it is there, right? Let me go just navigate to it and see. I'll fix that link. I'm glad I saw that in my public repo and dev, and then I renamed it how to. That's why. Okay, so here's the instructions. Now what we just did is we did this part, right, from the user perspective, which still required us to get to know this environment up here. We still had to do these steps, right? But now you're going to do this for your own code. You were running my code, running it in a virtual environment. But so these first 3 steps are going to feel very familiar because you just did them. And at step 4 and 5, that'll be different. And this is where you write your own code, select your own library. And actually, you can just see it right here. Freeze that, right? So this is the command that generates that file. So let me just show you. I'll come back here, right? So let's say in here, and it doesn't really matter. That's the other thing about this, is that it doesn't really matter. And by the way, you can see here in this how I have cloned those of you that have done code reviews. And by the way, I'm recording this in week 7, so I'm ahead of you. So that's why if you don't see years on year, that's because you maybe have not done your code review yet. But again, the reason I'm doing this is because of what I've seen through the course and through the Dev Zero. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just, in this case, I'm going to create this environment right off of my public. Again, it does not matter where you do it. Well, actually, no, I don't want to do that. I'm actually going to make MK dir. I'm going to call it virtual. Okay. So I have a new folder. I'm going to change into that folder. Okay. So again, the reason I did that is we'll end up creating the Python inside of there, right? So, and then I'm going to run this command right here. So this is the command once I am in that directory, right? So Python tree. Oh yeah. So this is on my Mac side. So let's see if I get that same thing. VENV. And now I'm going to call it. Now again, you can use the same names. The key is the activation part, right? I'm going to call this one example, but we could also call it, maybe this is more in line, dev1, right? Because this would be the idea you might be working on dev1. So what you're going to be doing, and just to be clear, you're going to be doing this in your week 9 folder, right? Because I've already done this and you've gone through my code. I'm just giving you an example of what, when you're the developer, what you do. Let's see if that works. It looks like it did. And again, it's the same process in this sense. Look, you get all those files when you first do it. It creates it, not in there, it creates that folder. Now, on the Mac and Linux side, right, you get this thing, you get it, let's see, where's the site? Packages, maybe they're in bin. Yeah, I think they're in bin. They're in the bin. Are they in? I'm just looking for them. Looks like they're not in the same place as the last time I looked. And all I'm trying to show you is what it comes with. And it's called site packages, resources, setups. I have to look through there a little more to find. I see pip. Those are in there. Maybe it's because I haven't installed anything. Yeah, that's probably why I haven't actually. No, site packages is right there. Sorry. It's right there. So site packages is the equivalent of scripts on the Windows side. Okay. So again, the first thing you want to do here is in that folder to create that file, that get ignore. Just put the star. And again, you'll immediately see if you're using VS Code, which most of you are, but if not, as soon as you do that, right, you will see that ignore that whole directory, which is what you want. Okay, so that's, we've got that set up. And now, so what we want to do, right, we did now we're going to activate. So in this case, right, because I'm on, now again, if you're running Windows, switch over and look at the other one, right? And I should and I will not modify this to show Mac versus Linux like I think I did here. Oh yeah, I didn't do here. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to paste this, but the key is going to be, I'm going to say source, and in here, I'm going to say dev1. So this is where I'm activating the environment. Okay, so now, and I can see it worked because my command changes. I should have done this again before, which Python shows me it's pointing to that folder within my repo. So it's isolating, virtualizing that location. Okay, I'm going to clear this. Again, I'm still in the virtual. So now what I want to do is install, right? So this is where, right, you're going to install. So this is where you're writing your own code, right? So I'm going to do, because I'm going to use this same thing I did, and I want you to use a different library to get this experience, right? You can use mine, like I said before, but use something else if you use mine as well. So now that I'm in here, because I'm in my virtual environment, I can just then paste, right? So my pip install And here's the key is it's going to go in that directory right there. Right? Let's see if it does that. Now the key is making sure, oh look, you can actually see it get added here. That's awesome, right? That's awesome. So now that I've installed that, I have that in my local. Now I'd want to inside, and here's the kind of just understanding this is I can write my code here, place my code into the virtual directory. Okay, so in the virtual directory, I would create my app.py. Again, for brevity's sake, I'm just going to grab my other one because it's the same idea. Right? We could talk about that, but in this case, that's the week 9. I'm just showing you. So this is where you go find your library, install it, write code to import it, right? Run it somehow. Again, if you want to use mine, that's cool, but also use another library, then you would have to, which is totally cool, right? So now I have my code. So then I would want to do, let's see if it runs here, Python, my app.py. About Python 3. I think it's because I virtualized my Python 3 environment, meaning Python 3. Cool, right? So I know this works. This is the code. Yay, happy. Okay, so then I can see that working. Okay, so now my code is done at this point. Your code is done at this point. Again, remember you're working in your week 9 directory. So now we bring back the instructions. I had them here. Okay. So write your code, write your own code, install whatever libraries. And here's the key. Once you're ready, then you run this command, which is freezing it. And basically it doesn't freeze it in the thing you may think. All it's doing is it's looking at your site packages, and it's going to create a file that allows the user then to use that to install when they get your code. Okay. So I'm going to do in here, pip 3, boom, 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 remembering I'm still in my virtual, and then boom, I have a new file, right? So I'm going to roll this up. So now I have the requirements file, So the last thing I want you to do here, well, not last thing, we could deactivate, but I want you to write that user instruction, like how would they install yours, right? So the steps they would want to go through, kind of like what I've done, but for your own code and just an experience. So the other thing you would want to have in this directory would be a README file. Is that right? Make sure I'm in the right folder here and here, right? And I would say README dot, and this is a very common file, README dot, and this was where you would write the user install instructions, and you can look at mine as an example just for, and again, make them better than what I did. Okay, so now that I've done all that, boom, 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 right? I've done that, and then I can deactivate, right? So I'm done with the environment, so I deactivate here, which is going to take and go back, right? So if I do Python 3, which Python, you will see, type exit, then Python 3, or just Python, which Python. So if you don't know the command which Python, evidently I don't either, this now shows you, if you remember me showing you this before, how this was looking in my local directory structure because it was looking at that virtual environment, right? So now what you can do is complete your Git workflow, right? So git add star, git commit -m, adding my virtual. Now, by the way, do a little better job here than I'm doing because I'm trying to make it fast. EMV week 9 code pool, and then git push. Right on. Okay, so now what you will see, and you can even, if you come in here at this point and another user, another student in this case has posted maybe their code. You're welcome to, if you want. For this first part of the assignment is to use theirs versus mine. I quite frankly don't care. But I hope this at least gives you this experience. And let me just end with saying this. The reason I've done this is, and I've talked about it during the process, but is that I've seen several of you use libraries. I think it's important to know how to virtualize those things in our programming language of Python, because I've done it in Node and it works well. So now I see how this works. And there are other software things that you can use to virtualize your environments with Python. This seemed to be the most basic one, and it's already built into Python, so it's the one that I chose, and I think you probably would. You can choose something else if you want. Okay, so I walked you through this. We did the Git workflow. Now, provide us a link to the folder, right? And then your reply, tell us if you were successful. Like, did you get this done? Maybe what libraries did you use? Were you successful in creating the virtual environment? And then, right? And then you could even say in your reply if you welcome anybody else that would want to go clone. And let me just end by, I keep saying that, but be very aware that if you do clone somebody else's, now you can't clone their privates because only I have access to their private repos. You can only see their public ones. So if you do clone somebody else's and mine, right? Once you clone, never push code to those repos, right? Only pull code if you want, either out of mine or somebody else's, because when you pull, you just gather their changes in there. Okay, so how I will grade this is you'll have two parts, right? So first doing mine, right? Reporting back on that. Were you successful? So in your reply, break it into, right, either installing mine or somebody else's, and then your comments about that. And then another heading, and this is what I use in here, another heading is where you create your own. I hope you find this helpful. I spent, like I said, a bit of time trying to write good and, well, not good, instruction to help you walk through this process, but every system is different. And so it's hard for me to accommodate for every situation. So as you run into issues, reach out for help. Talk to you later.